would like to introduce presenter Iman Alramadan, who has been working with Arabic studies since 2007. She has a PhD from the University Jean Moulin in France, and has also worked in a study at the University of Aleppo, Al-Bath University in Syria. And Iman, you can correct me, please, if I'm just mispronouncing this place. It's not on purpose. And also the University of Florida. She's a specialist in teaching Arabic as a foreign language and is versed in Arabic grammar and morphology and Arabic literature. She has studied the language of Arabic science heritage, and Arabic medical terminology. Man teaches beginning through advanced Arabic, and she also teaches content class such as Arab women and Arabic culture through music. And we also have the honor, the privilege to have our presenter, Alwiya Omar. She's a clinical professor in the African Studies program at Indiana University, Bloomington. She coordinates the teaching of African languages, teaches Kiswahili at all levels, in linguistics course, Language in Africa, that can count towards African language minor. Her research interests include pragmatics and second language acquisition. She has served as the president of the African Language Teacher Association, and also recognized with different awards. She was the 2018 NCOL Walton Award for Distinguished Lifetime Service in the field of less common languages. She was also president of the National Council of Less Commonly Taught Languages, and we have the privilege and the honor to have you here, Iman and Alwiya. Thank you for joining and being the first presenters presenting less commonly taught languages in our webinar.
Thank you, Israel.
Thank you so much, Israel, and everybody. So great to present with Professor Alwiya, and the floor is yours. Maybe we start with the title of our presentation today is Learner-Centered Activities in and Outside the World Language Classroom. Okay.
Yeah, in this webinar, we will discuss different strategies and activities that can be used to reinforce the learner-centered classroom.
So we will also provide examples of activities that can be used outside of the classroom to keep students engaged with the target language and reinforce their language skills.
We will discuss examples from MUA 2018 and BACA 2004, and then we will share examples that we use in our own language teaching.
Participants will have the opportunity to share strategies that they use in their classrooms. Let's start.
Yeah, so we'll start with learner-centered classroom. According to MUA 2018, learner-centered content is a fundamental principle for increasing students' engagement and motivation. We will talk about activities and strategies that MUA discussed inside the classroom. Yeah, the first one is use learners' lives and experiences as input. And 2, create content around a topic that students are passionate about. 3, link to a real-world context. 4, use of technology to support activities. And 5, give students choices. So we look at the first one, use learners' lives and experiences as input. Learners give examples from their daily lives. So when they do different topics, you can connect them with their daily lives and experiences. And then 2, create content around a topic that students are passionate about. So you can put students in groups to suggest 3 interesting topics that they want to talk about during the semester. And this can be at the beginning, the first week. when you introduce the syllabus and you ask them for their feedback. And if there are things that they want, other topics they want to be integrated in the syllabus, you can go ahead and do it, because your syllabus, usually it is recommended to say syllabus subject to change. So you may integrate students' feedback on what they want. And then ask students to bring examples of 3 things that they found interesting during the week. So for example, at the end of the week, you tell them, what did you find interesting? And they can come talk about it the next week. And then get students' feedback on what they enjoyed the most or least. So for example, at the end of each week, for example, you can, what did you enjoy the most this week? What did you enjoy the least this week? And then you can adjust your teaching. And then get students' feedback on the most important thing they learned. So you can also integrate what they have learned and what maybe they have not learned, and revise whatever you did before. Then linking to a real world context. And all these are examples that have been taken from MUA 2018. Students work on an activity that has real life application, like creating a newsletter. So you ask students to, maybe they work on a project, term paper project, they write essays, and you can compile those essays in a newsletter, or another thing that they have done, other tasks, and they can be put into a newsletter. And then they can also create a website or a blog where they share their experiences, and they can put comments, comment on each other's postings. Use of technology to support activities. So there's a lot of technology that can be used. One of them is Kahoot to play games. And Kahoot is easy to prepare, and students' participation can take place by using their mobile devices, their phones, their padlets, etc. And then use internet to research on the target language country. For example, they can, you can tell them, look for a best place in this target language country, or a fun place to visit. And then they can share this. They can post this on the website or blog that they have created. Later on, they can even put in a newsletter, description of the best place or fun to visit. And use of authentic videos and audios. So we mean by authentic here, we mean videos that have been created by native speakers for native speakers. They can be used in the classrooms as well, videos and audios. And then television and radio broadcasts for current events. So you can start early, even end of semester 1, students should be able to talk about current events, even like in brief, discrete sentences. They can listen to radio broadcasts, they can watch television, news, and they can talk about the current events. And give students choices. This is very important in order to get students more involved and motivated. So allow learners simple freedoms, like allowing them to choose the order in which they complete a certain set of tasks. So they've been given a task. Give them freedom to say, at this point we'll do this, at this point we'll do that. So they have the freedom to choose how they do their tasks. And the topic of discussion. For example, they need to discuss something on a certain country, so they can choose maybe some aspect of that country to discuss. So have them choose the topic, even the topic of their maybe term paper project. And then maybe you give them a role play. So instead of saying, you do this role and you do that role, give them chance, opportunity to choose the character that they want to play. And then they can talk together and make a decision who is doing what, instead of the instructor, the teacher assigning the roles. And then ask what they would like to achieve from the course. And this could be actually done at the beginning of the semester, the first week, the first day. What would you like to achieve from the course? Because you would have already done, maybe set the goals, but then you want them to get their feedback and see what they also want, and then you can integrate it. provide them with choices for the goals. Like, for example, the goals of like, at the end of this semester, you will reach novice high, or at the end of this semester, you will reach this level. And then you can also add what kind of things they want to achieve during the semester. So those are the suggestions that have been given by MOA 2018 and suggest strategies. What we would like to do now is have you break out into groups and discuss what kind of activities and strategies you use in your own classroom. So maybe there'll be groups, each group will have 4 participants, and then work together and choose one person to take out notes, to take down notes, and then that person will share with the rest of the group in the main room. You'll have like 5 minutes to discuss, 5 or 6 minutes, Iman.
Maybe 5.
5 minutes. And then we may not be able to listen to all the breakout room sessions. So other people can put their summaries on chat also. So it's time for breakouts.
All right, so everyone should be receiving an invitation to a breakout room. And so our topic again is, what learner-centered activities do you use in your language classroom?
And one person can lead and take down the notes to share.
All right, so I'm trying to make sure there's at least 2 people in every breakout room. Yep, every breakout room has at least 2 people. All right, and I'll pause the recording while we have our chats.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me.
Martha, yeah.
Martha,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm actually Martha's sister because I couldn't get on otherwise onto the onto the webinar. But I wanted to talk about something that she did. It's called Teach to Learn. I talked very briefly about it in the session. This Martha worked with a dual language instruction kindergarten in which she wanted to have oracy and productive ability from the very, very beginning. So she paired up EL students with Spanish learners, kindergartners, and the paradigm that she developed had social skills as one of the major components, turn taking, sharing, and they followed a paradigm in which they had a greeting, they showed an object, or then later they were doing math with number frames with different geometric and other objects that they were counting. And they had to repeat, they taught one another. Then the final thing was praising one another. And the other person had to say thank you for the praise and then say goodbye. So the paradigm had this, as I say, social skills as one of its main components, but also the idea of turn taking and of speaking from the very, very beginning and of teaching one another. And she noticed several very fascinating things, one of which was that they needed a quiet room to do this in. That was very, 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 very important. And the idea that every school needs to have spaces that give you that quiet opportunity for students to focus. I don't care if it's a little kindergarten student or an older student, they all need that focus. And they surprised us with their tenacity. Amazing tenacity. These little kids, they were given the choice of continuing when they didn't quite get it or going back to the room, and they always chose continuing to try it, and they didn't want to quit until they had success. And what also was fascinating was their the way in which sound and the pleasure of sound came into this oracy, one of which was that we noticed that the harder words, the 3-syllable words like triángulo and amarillo were some of their favorites. They didn't get those wrong. And yet they were the more complex and the more difficult words. Helado was also a favorite for obvious reasons, for ice cream.
Thank you.
But yeah, so
Teach to learn. That's great. I think we're done with this part. So what you could do is, for those who did not have a chance to share, you can put your notes in chat so that other people can read also. So we'll go to the second part of our presentation on strategies outside the classroom.
Okay, so let me share my screen and we will go to another question, but this time, so we are going to talk about taking L2 learning outside of the classroom. Another question for you, and we have 1 minute to answer, and please type your answer in the chat box. The question is, why do students need to practice language outside of classroom? And please provide your answer or type your answer in the chat box. Why do students need to practice language outside of classroom? You have the chat box and so we have for fluency, practice make perfect, memorization, for more confidence using the language, right? Yes. Goal of language learning is to apply their learning into real life, right? Because outside of classroom setting is okay, I'm just here. Creative repetition is never sufficient, right? Field trip. They need to see the real world situation application. They need to practice. Okay. So, according to Barker, high level of fluency can only come from extended speaking practice. In the classroom, students don't have regular contact with native speakers, of course, except for their teacher, right? So we go to another question here. What are the benefits of taking L2 learning outside of the classroom? What are the benefits? If you don't mind, type your answer in the chat box as well. There are many benefits of taking L2 learning outside of the classroom. What do you think? Why? Communicate. So benefit of taking L2 learning outside of the classroom, communicate. Students will be more motivated to use target language. Learning by doing. Thank you, Simon. Real life, confidence. Awesome. Building L2 language, yeah, confidence, right? Using the language, include their family members. Real world, so we see real world experience, very connect with friends and family, social network. Awesome. That's learn the culture. It's really important, right? So according to Barker, here, let me see. Going into moving language or using language, practicing language outside of the classroom will help to reduce anxiety. It helps reducing anxiety. So many students panic when they have a chance to speak to a native speaker. When we encourage students to use L2 to their everyday life, we help them to reduce their level of anxiety. And it helps increasing fluency, as well as a lot of people mentioned here, a lot of our colleagues. Most students know that what they want to say, but they can't access the language quickly enough. By having an outside classroom interaction, students' ability to retrieve L2 will increase with fluency. And the last point is taking language or practicing language outside of classroom help increasing motivation and attitude toward second language. Now we move to get the guidelines for L2 interaction outside of the classroom. According to the survey that Barker conducted with Japanese students studying English, students are reluctant to practice with other students because of many reasons. First, students will pick up other students' mistakes. Second, students aren't able to correct each other. And that's normal because, you know, if you have 18 students in class, the teacher or the instructor will talk to the students, but still in the group, they may, like the pronunciation, sometimes usage of certain grammatical concept. So they won't be able to correct each other, and they will understand each other because they have the same linguistic background. So maybe they have the same pronunciation of certain word, and they will be able to understand each other. And here we go to the pronunciation won't improve at all, or maybe won't improve the way we want, right? So how to increase student interaction and usage of L2 outside of the classroom? And I don't want to hear, like, we will take a little bit time to discuss that later. According to Barker, we have several strategies that help to increase students' usage of language outside of classroom. Among them, one, incorporate outside activities into the course, use classroom time to help students prepare for these activities, set up a club or more than a club, offer students a range of strategies and encourage them to experiment, and hold an L2 camp. Let's examine the first strategy, incorporate into the course. So students, when they come to the class, they should know from the beginning that teacher expects them to use L2 outside of the classroom as integral part of the course. So we should mention that in the syllabus and communicate that with the students from day one. So they expect what they know what we expect from them. The second strategy is use class time to help students prepare. So you give students an assignment or homework, and they know I have to do this for my class. And then you set aside class time to answer questions that students may have relating to what they practiced outside of the classroom. Set up a club. So of course we say a club or more than club because all language clubs give the student chance to communicate with each other, each others and with native speakers. And the clubs are, usually we can hold many clubs according to students' interest as well. Maybe music club, cooking club, calligraphy club, folklore club, round table culture club, for example, and offer students a range of strategies and encourage them to experiment. This is one of the strategy. So learners are all different. Remind the students and yourself that this is an ongoing effort, not a one-off succeed or fail experiment. And the last strategy is to hold an L2 camp. And this camp could be anything from lunchtime picnic to a weekend away, but the key point is that L2 will be the only language of communication. And we see that very important. So attendance to this outside of activities should be voluntarily. So it's not mandatory, they are not mandatory, and everyone should focus on some activities such as cooking together, using the target language when we cook, and of course we have the club leader, which of course, here, what we say here, according to Barker, so that they are using language for real communication. So according to Barker and Moore, educators should consider challenging students to go big. So prepare students to connect with the community, not only the classroom, go beyond the classroom, participate in fundraising events, service learning, volunteering with local group or charities. And those are many challenges. And of course, a lot of you, we have more challenges here we can talk about. Now we are going to move to the examples from our teaching with Professor Alwiya and I. Maybe Professor Alwiya, you want to start?
No, go ahead and start.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I will share my screen one more time here. And I will share a few activities that I use in my classroom. And I currently, okay, let me start with my classroom. Then I go a little bit to the program because I'm currently the section head of the Arabic program in the summer language workshop. And I try to apply so many strategies outside of the classroom to help students use the language outside of the classroom with native speakers. So you look here to this in Arabic, of course, is written in Arabic. And this is kind of a questionnaire about a topic the topic of the week. And this is addressed to advanced level, 4th year Arabic class. And that was part of the global classroom that I conducted in partner with Jordan. So here the topic was about global warming. So we have a kind of questionnaire students they have to ask, not asking each other, but we pair students with native speakers from around the Arab world. So we can say conversation partner. They meet with them every week for an hour, and they address these questions. So students will ask them about global warming, what are the laws, for example, of their country. For example, I have 7 students will meet with 7 people from Jordan, from Yemen, from United Arab Emirates, from Algeria, from Morocco. So they meet with them, conduct this survey or questionnaire, record the answer and write about the answer. After that, they will meet together to talk and record about each one of them will tell the other one about their finding. For example, here in this video, I have a student from United States and another student from France. So both of them conducted the same questionnaire with different people from different Arab countries, and they met up, as you can tell. It was nighttime in France and it was daytime in America, but they managed to meet together, and you can hear, I will play the video for maybe less than 1 minute to see how they tell each other how people approach the global warming issue in their countries.
أتحدث مع يسرى مرة أخرى وممكن نبدأ مع الأسئلة.
أيوة ممكن. أولاً هل تعتبرين سلوكي اليومي صديقاً للبيئة مع السلوك الذي ترغبين بتغيره لتصبح سلوكتي صديقة للبيئة؟
Okay, so يسرى تقول نعم تحاول أن تفعل أشياء.
So here the first student met with somebody from Jordan, and Amina met with somebody from Qatar. And each one of them will tell each other what they said, and then they tell their opinion about what they're finding. And of course, we had a writing assignment to write. Each one of them will write a report about their finding about this survey. Another way of, maybe I will go back to the like outside of the classroom, this activity actually inside of the classroom, right? Inside the classroom, preparing this board game. Students like conversation time where students, they can ask each other, and it's fun. And you see the classroom, it's like all the students will be engaged, they'll be happy, they'll use the language. Sometimes here, for example, they have to sing a song, then ask question, then answer the question, they have to dance, they have to turn about the chair, they have to laugh so hard, they have to take a selfie, and they'll be so happy, very engaged inside the classroom. Here I use this board game to activate a grammatical concept, to activate certain words, to talk about, for example, a certain topic. So I use this board game for many activities inside the classroom. So here, for example, I use it to activate the form, like the morphological form in Arabic language. That's why my question were in English, because students, they have to ask in Arabic and derive the correct form from the root, because Arabic is a root system. So here, for example, one of the classroom activity hold class panels, invite guest speakers. For example, here we have one of the nominated for a Nobel Prize about child marriage. So one from Jordan, one from Egypt, one from Qatar. And the students here, they are talking to them after they have read about them, and we talked about the child marriage and everything. So we will hold this panel to ask about different questions, and then they write about this panel when they go back home. For example, one of the examples connecting with the community, we had one of our community member, Dr. Khalaf Al-Harbi, who used to volunteer and cook for the homeless shelter in Bloomington. So I thought it will be a great idea to take our students there and let them use the language. It's like cooking. They cooked in the kitchen, they prepared food, and they were interacting with him in Arabic, and we had other native speaker with him, like his family. So I had 20 students working in the Shalom Center kitchen, serving food for homeless, and they really enjoyed that. And they added volunteer hours to their resume. For example, one of the activities, a cup of coffee in an Arab house. Students, I take the students, I'll ask one member of the community to go and visit them. We will visit them have a cup of coffee and talk with them, or
Philo.
prepare
Oh yeah.
prepare like kind of Arabic pastry with them or dessert.
معناها انتوا بتحطوها بالفرن هي.
لازم تتحمس
So here we were cooking together. The students were cooking as well. So one of the activities I used in the class as well, connecting students, for example, with ladies in my Arab women class, with ladies from around the Arab world. 38 ladies from around the Arab world. Students will do with them like interview. They record this interview. They come to class, present about the interview. Those women, they had big challenges in their life. For example, we have one of our great speakers. She had so many challenges from Morocco. She was able to like overcome these challenges. Another lady, professor at Cambridge University, but she's from Syria. So they conduct interview with them. They come to present about them in class. Then they write about it. And at the end, we produce this booklet about Arab women in the Arab world. So, and that was all produced by students. They work together outside of the classroom. They come to discuss. They ask each other. They write, and they produce this beautiful booklet. Maybe Professor Omar, I'll take this 1 minute as well. So outside activity, for example, I have a Facebook page, a closed group. Of course, I will start with this group, which is what was for my global classroom. Students read an article, write about the article, and they respond to each other. But I really want to share with you this group, which I created like 2013 when I was in Florida, and students still interact in this this page. And when I post something, they will interact and they respond to me in Arabic, and which is fascinating because some of them now they finished their doctorate or their master degree or something. So that it means they took Arabic as lifelong learning, and that's really exciting.
Yeah.
To you, Professor Omar.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll go briefly because we want to have time for question and answer. So we talked about having a newsletter, the students making a newsletter. They created a newsletter using topics that they have done for their term project. So this is an example of a newsletter. We can go down. The newsletter is based on, actually up a little bit, on A to Z project that the students take a letter from the alphabet and then link it with a topic that they're interested in. So like here, M is music. M is music. M is Masai Mara. Masai Mara is a region in Tanzania and Kenya. V is in Vyakula, is food. V is food. W is Wanyama. Wanyama means animals. So they choose a topic that they want. Remember, we talk about students giving student choices. So they choose what they like, and then they write a term paper based on it. And this checks the whole semester. And by the end of the semester, of course, we want them to reach novice high, which can be like active novice high, which means that they have to participate at the intermediate level most of the time. So even though they'll be writing in discrete sentences, but if you go down a little bit on where they will use, like for example there, they'll use kuna lugha nyingi nchini Kenya. There's a lot of languages in Kenya. Kuna lugha 40, there are 42 languages. So they use the same kuna, they repeat. So a lot of repetition, a lot of simple sentences, but they can create, they can write a term paper based on what they are interested in. So Iman, can we go to the guidelines that I gave? So here we have the guidelines. We ask them not to use English when they write. They should write all together in the target language. And I tell them the length of paper can be 2 or 3 pages. And then I give them useful expressions to use. Can you go down under useful expressions? Like for example, our project is about, so they know how to say that in Swahili. We will talk about, and first we will do this, second we'll do that, third we'll do that, and finally we'll do that. So, and it's a group project, which it is start in the classroom, but it's connected with the outside also, because they can communicate, they can contact other speakers of the language and maybe get more information. They can browse the internet to get information on the target language country that they're working on the aspect of food that they're working on. So it's a great project that they like doing it. And of course, they work in pairs inside the classroom and outside the classroom. So this is called an A to Z project that I heard about this in one workshop and I forgot who presented it, but it's interesting and the students like it. And especially at the elementary level, they choose the topic that they like based on that alphabet. And the second semester, we can do the same thing. So for creating newsletters also, like for example, at the beginning, they can talk about themselves, they describe their families, they can have another newsletter at the beginning before doing this. This is the second volume of the newsletter. The first one was writing about their own lives, where they come from, where they live, how many members of their family, describing their families. And they can do that, and that's linking to their own, the daily lives like we talked about. I think we'll stop here and we have about six minutes of question and answer. If you have any questions or any comments, any suggestions, any feedback, anything, it's up to you now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're welcome to put your questions in the chat. Let's see, so we have one teacher who really loves the idea of doing that kind of A to Z writing project.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that you could potentially send the participants today a link to a description of how you put that project together, or kind of the instructions you give for that project, Professor Omar?
Yeah, we could do that. We have I have the files that we can. How do we do that? Can you give them?
I can send it to the folks who signed in today. I have everyone's email address.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I can send it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is in Iman has that, and we can. I can also
share this.
Email it.
Do you mind if I send the link, Professor Omar?
Yeah, you can send it.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we have another question also about the A to Z project. So you mentioned students pick based on the letter, but how do you kind of encourage them to choose a topic?
So I encourage them to think of what they like to do. What is the topic from the target language country that they're interested in? So I don't tell them do this. I tell them choose the alphabet and choose what you want. Like for example, some people like food, and food is V, start with V, Vyakula, food. So they will say Vyakula. They're interested in food. And a group of students interested in music. So I don't tell them do this, but they choose what they're interested in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. We have a question for Professor Alramadan. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you designed the board game, or how you use the board game?
Yeah.
So I use it in the class. Even I use it on Zoom, actually. You know, the students have to, for example, use Google Dice, and then they turn the die, play the dice, and what number I will show you here, just a second. The number they land on, they have to ask each other a question. For example, here, let's take this one here. And for example, we say, just they have to roll the dice and ask each other a question. This question here in Arabic. So for example, I roll the dice and I landed, I have 2. So I count 1, 2. And then this is my turn. I'll ask my partner, which whatever, blah, 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 blah. So my partner will answer. Now it's my partner turn. They play they roll the dice and they move, maybe they got the number 6. Number 6, okay, dance. Okay, you have to get up and dance. And they giggle and they laugh, and so they make it alternatively, so each one by turn, and it could be like 2 players or 3 players. And actually, I adapted the basic of this board game, and I added, and I try to adapt it to Arabic as well. And I added these pictures and the instructions, just to make it a little bit of fun. So students, when they reach at the end, for example, I asked them here, they have to repeat one of, for example, tongue twister. Repeat it in Arabic here, for example, here, tongue twister, sharshaf, sharifu, sharshafin. And they will laugh. It's kind of, and we give to the whole class, and when they finish, we say the first group they finish, they are the winners, and we do celebrate them in class. We celebrate them by doing whatever culture, like Kinana. So we do all this celebration.